There was a man in our settlement, I will call him Joseph, though that was not his name, who could outwork any two men from sun-up to last light. He cleared timber faster, hauled heavier loads, ploughed longer rows. By the time he was 40, his hands looked like they had been carved from the same oak he spent his life splitting. And by the time he was 45, Joseph could not remember simple things. He would stand in his own barn and forget why he had walked through the door. He would sit at supper, and his wife would watch his hands shake around his spoon. His eyes were open, but something behind them had gone dim. The elders noticed. His children noticed. His horses noticed, because animals always know before people do. Joseph was not sick in the way the English doctors would recognize. No fever, no broken bones, no blood where blood should not be. Joseph was emptied out, hollowed from the inside. And when the oldest man in our community, a man named Amos, who had seen 91 winters, sat beside Joseph on his porch one evening, he did not ask about his work or his appetite or his prayers. Amos asked one question. He said, "Joseph, how have you been sleeping?" The answer, as it turned out, explained everything. I am going to tell you what Joseph said, and what Amos told him afterward, a teaching that had been passed through our families for more generations than I can count. But first, I need you to understand something about rest that most of the world has completely forgotten. Because the way many of you have been sleeping, the position, the timing, the room, the hours before you close your eyes, is not rest at all. It is something else entirely, and it is taking from you slowly, the way a creek takes from a bank. You do not see the damage until the ground gives way beneath your feet. In our community, sleep is not something you simply fall into when the day is over. Sleep is not collapse. It is not what happens when your body has nothing left to give. Sleep, as my grandmother taught me, is the other half of living. She said it plainly. The day is for the body. The night is for the soul to put the body back together. And she meant that with the full weight of her conviction. If the soul cannot do its work at night, if you have arranged yourself wrong, if the room is wrong, if the hours before rest are wrong, then you wake each morning a little less whole than you were the day before. Not dramatically, not in a way you would notice on any single morning. But over years, over decades, the loss accumulates. And one day you are Joseph, standing in your own barn, wondering where you went. Let me tell you the first rule, and it is the one that will surprise you most. My grandfather slept on his back, every night of his life. He did not prop himself on 3 pillows, or curl onto his side with his knees drawn up to his chest. He lay flat on a firm mattress, stuffed with straw, and later with wool, and he placed one thin pillow beneath his head, just enough to keep his throat open and his neck straight. His arms rested at his sides or folded lightly across his chest. And he was still. I do not mean he never moved through the night. Every living body shifts and turns. But he began on his back, and most nights he stayed there. When I was a boy, maybe 9 or 10, I asked him why. He looked at me the way he looked at most questions, as though the answer should be obvious to anyone who paid attention to the world. He said, "Your spine holds you up all day long. At night, you lay it down flat so it can remember its true shape. If you sleep twisted, you teach your spine to hold a shape God did not intend." I have thought about that sentence for 60 years. I have watched men and women in our community who followed that rule live into their 80s and 90s with straight backs and clear minds. And I have watched others, good people, hard workers, who slept curled tight as a fist every night, and woke each morning with pain they could not name, stiffness they blamed on age, a fog behind their eyes they thought was simply what getting older felt like. It is not what getting older feels like. It is what sleeping wrong feels like, compounded over 10,000 nights. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. You are thinking that you cannot sleep on your back, that you have tried, and it does not feel natural. Let me say this carefully, because I mean it with respect. What feels natural to you now is simply what you have practiced. A man who has carried a heavy stone in his left hand for 20 years will feel strange when you take it away. His arm will feel too light. He will reach for the weight out of habit. That does not mean the stone belonged there. Your body has learned to sleep in whatever position you have given it for years. That does not mean it is the right position. It means it is the practiced one. And there is a wide distance between what is practiced and what is true. The second rule is about what comes before sleep, and this is where I see the outside world making its gravest mistakes. In our homes, the last hour before bed is quiet. I do not mean silent. There may be soft conversation, a mother reading scripture to her children, the sound of a kettle being set on the stove for a last cup of chamomile or mint. But the work of the day is finished. The arguments, if there were any, have been settled or set aside. The body has begun its long, slow signal that darkness is coming and rest is near. My father was strict about this. He would not allow any heavy discussion after supper. If there was a disagreement between my brothers, he would say, "That belongs to tomorrow morning. Tonight you will let it go." If my mother had worries about the garden or the preserves or a sick animal, he would listen, nod, and say, "We will see to it in the light. Nothing good is decided in the dark." He was not dismissing her. He was protecting the hours before sleep the way you would protect a newborn, carefully, without compromise. I have visited homes in the English world. I have seen what people do in that last hour. They watch bright screens that pour trouble and noise and argument into their eyes. They read news about wars they cannot stop and disasters they cannot prevent. They carry small glowing machines into their beds, right into the place where their bodies are supposed to surrender, and they fill their minds with worry and light and the voices of strangers. And then they close their eyes and expect peace to come. How, tell me, how would peace come after that? How would you have invited war into your resting place, and then you wonder why your body will not let go, why your mind races, why you lie in the dark with your jaw clenched and your thoughts spinning like a wheel that has come off its axle. The third rule is one we teach our children before they are old enough to understand it, and it is this: sleep belongs to the dark. We do not use electric lights. You know this about us. But I want you to understand why this matters for rest specifically. When the sun goes down, our homes grow dim. We light a lamp or two, soft, warm light, the color of late afternoon, and the body begins to know what time it is, not because a clock tells it, but because the world itself tells it. The light fades, the air cools, the sounds outside change from the sounds of work to the sounds of evening. Crickets, wind in the trees, an owl in the far timber, and the body listens. Your body was made to listen to these signals. For thousands of years, every human body on this earth listened to them. The light told you when to wake, the dark told you when to rest, and somewhere in the last 100 years, a single breath in the life of humanity, you decided you knew better than the darkness. You flooded your nights with light, blue light, white light, light that mimics the sun at noon, pouring from screens 6 inches from your face at 10 o'clock at night. And your body, which spent 100,000 years trusting the darkness, no longer knows what time it is. Do you understand what I'm saying? Your body is confused, not broken, confused. It is waiting for a signal that never comes, because you have drowned that signal in artificial light, and a confused body does not rest. It performs something that looks like rest, but is not. It lies still, but it does not rebuild. It closes its eyes, but it does not restore. And you wake tired, and you blame your age, and you pour coffee into yourself and push through another day, never once suspecting that the answer was as simple as darkness. In our homes, when the lamps go out, the dark is complete, not frightening, not empty, full of rest, full of the body, finally receiving the signal it has been waiting for all evening. And sleep comes not like something you chase, but like something that has been waiting patiently at the door, and you have finally stepped aside and let it in. This brings me to the fourth rule, and it is the one Amos taught Joseph on that porch, the one I promised I would share with you. Amos was the oldest man most of us had ever known. He had buried 2 wives, raised 11 children, and worked his land until he was 87. His mind was as clear at 91 as spring water, and when he sat with Joseph that evening, he told him something that Joseph later repeated to my father, who repeated it to me. Amos said, "You have been sleeping with your day." Joseph did not understand at first, so Amos explained. He said that when a man goes to bed carrying the weight of his work, not just the tiredness, but the worry, the plans, the unfinished tasks, the arguments replaying behind his eyes, he is not sleeping. He is lying down with his day still alive on top of him. The body is flat, but the mind is still standing. The eyes are closed, but the thoughts are still running. And the body knows the difference. It always knows. Amos told Joseph to do something our grandmothers taught, but that many of us had forgotten. Before you lie down, you stand at the edge of your bed, or kneel beside it, if that is your custom, and you set the day down. Not in prayer, though prayer may be part of it. You set it down the way you would set down a heavy bucket you have carried from the well. You feel the weight leave your hands. You feel your shoulders drop. You name, silently or aloud, the things you are releasing. The task that is not yet finished. The word you should not have spoken. The worry about tomorrow's weather or next month's harvest. You name them, and you set them on the floor beside your bed, and you tell yourself plainly, those belong to tomorrow. Tonight, I am empty. Joseph had never done this, not once in 45 years. He carried every day into his sleep the way a man might carry stones into a river, and then wonder why he sank. When Joseph began to practice this, along with lying flat on his back in a dark room, something changed in him. Not instantly, not in a week, but over the course of that winter, his wife said it was like watching a frozen field begin to thaw. His hands steadied, his memory returned. The light came back into his eyes. He was not cured of anything, because he had not been sick. He had simply been sleeping wrong, in position, in preparation, in the very way he understood what rest was for. There is a fifth rule, and I will share it, because it ties the others together. We rise early, not because we are punishing ourselves, and not because there is some virtue in suffering through a cold, dark morning. We rise early because sleep has a season within each night, and the deepest, most restorative rest comes in the early hours of darkness, not in the hours after midnight, and certainly not in the pale grey hours of late morning. My grandmother told me that the hours between 9 in the evening and 1 in the morning are what she called the marrow hours. She said that just as the marrow is the deepest part of the bone, those early hours of sleep are the deepest part of the night. If you are awake during those hours, talking, working, staring at a screen, worrying, you have missed the marrow, and you cannot get it back by sleeping later in the morning. A man who goes to bed at midnight and sleeps until 8 has not gotten the same rest as a man who goes to bed at 9 and rises at 5. The hours are the same in number, but they are not the same in weight. The early hours carry more. I have no scientific explanation for this. I have only the observation of 300 years of my people living this way and dying old with their minds intact and their bodies still useful. And I have the observation of a world outside our fences that sleeps later and later, rises more and more reluctantly, and walks through its days in a fog that no amount of coffee or medicine seems to lift. Now I must tell you the warning, because it would not be honest to teach you these things without telling you what I have seen when they are ignored. I have watched what happens to a man who does not respect rest. Not in your world, in mine. Because even among us, there are those who believe that work is everything, that sleep is laziness wearing a mask, that a strong man needs less rest than others. I watched my own uncle, my mother's brother, live by that belief. He slept 4 or 5 hours a night. He was proud of it. He said sleep was for the weak, and he had too much to do. He worked in the dark. He rose before the animals. And he was the hardest working man I ever knew. He died at 58. Not from an accident, not from disease. He simply wore out. His heart gave way on a Tuesday morning in April while he was hitching his team. He dropped in the mud beside his own horses, and by the time his son reached him, he was gone. The doctor who came said his heart had been struggling for years. But we knew the truth. You cannot take from the night for 30 years and expect the day to hold. The body keeps its accounts more honestly than any ledger. Every hour of rest you steal, it remembers. Every night you lie twisted in the wrong position, it records the cost. Every evening you pour bright light and loud worry into your eyes and ears before you ask your body to restore itself. It notes the offense, and one day the bill comes due. Sometimes it comes as fog and forgetfulness, the way it came for Joseph. Sometimes it comes as a heart that simply stops, the way it came for my uncle. I tell you this not to frighten you. I tell you because I have lived long enough to see the pattern repeat, and I would not be doing right by you if I kept silent. So here is what I leave you with. Tonight, when the day is done and you have eaten your last meal and spoken your last words to the people you love, do something different. Turn off the screens, all of them. Let the house grow quiet. Let the darkness come in, not as an enemy, but as a friend you have not welcomed in a long time. Stand at the edge of your bed and set the day down. Feel the weight leave your hands. Lie on your back. Let your spine remember its true shape. Close your eyes, not to escape the world, but to let your body do the work it has been waiting all day to do. And if you wake in the morning feeling something you have not felt in years, a clarity, a stillness, a feeling that your body actually rested instead of merely stopped, then you will know what we have always known. Rest is not the absence of work. Rest is the presence of surrender, and surrender is not weakness. It is the oldest kind of strength there is, the kind that lets the night do what the night was made to do. My grandfather slept that way for 93 years. He died in his own bed, in the dark, in the quiet, with his spine straight and his hands folded and his mind clear to the last breath. That is not luck. That is not genetics. That is a man who understood that the night is not empty time between 2 days. The night is where the body is rebuilt, where the mind is washed clean, where the soul does its silent work. You have been given the same night he was given, the same darkness, the same body that knows exactly what to do if you will stop interfering and let it. The only question is whether you will.